Hello, if you've ever struggled to paint some landscape paintings in Procreate or any app for that matter, stick around and I'll talk you through my process as I paint this nice country scene. And I'm already off in the background there, and I'm using the fill tool in Procreate. You don't have to use that, it's just nice to get in big shapes. I prefer to use it over sketching because sketching doesn't really show you where everything's going to go, and it's a nice and fast tool. But if you prefer to use brushes, that's fine. Just make the brush really big and blob the shapes in. The only thing you probably want to do is make sure you use a hard brush, because you'll see me soften the edges of the hard shapes that this color fill tool makes shortly. But the nice thing about doing it with a hard brush or the color fill is that you get hard edges. Now, if you don't have hard edges, it'll kind of look too blurry. So you want a mix of sharp and soft edges in all paintings, really. It doesn't have to be landscapes. But if we look around, if you look, you're sitting here now, you probably look on the screen in mobile or whatever. If you look around, when you look at things, some things will be sharp and some things will be blurry. So that's just because our eyes are focusing on certain things or whatever. So if we mimic that in paintings, it can look a lot better. Now, if you do take a photo, most things are going to be in focus because of the way cameras work, unless you kind of make it be out of focus in certain aspects, which you can do, and the pros are very good at that. But generally we'll have photos with everything in focus, and that's not good. So my reference photo down in the bottom left, you can see everything's in focus, so that means there's very few blurry edges. But when you want to paint it, you want to add some. Now I'm going on about blurry edges and edges, but edges are important. They're one of the major factors of landscapes. There's lots of factors, but edges are one of them. So once I make the big shapes, you can see I use this color fill tool. One thing I like about it is I can go make random shapes very quick and not worry about committing it until I press that little white button. It's quite hard to see, but if you look closely, there's like a little white dot when I finish painting when I finish the color fill tool. And then when you press that little dot, it commits it. So you kind of got time to change your mind and not hit that dot. If you don't hit the dot, it just doesn't bother. So it's quite nice, is you kind of got an undo without really doing it. But I generally just blast it in anyway. This is running at 2 speed, so I'm actually pretty quick at painting anyway because I don't really care about mistakes. I'm just trying to get the gist of this painting or reference, and I don't really care how accurate it is, but I mean, obviously, because I've done this a lot, it's reasonably accurate. But you can see right now the snow color in the shadows off, is floating at your face. I know that. But what I'm trying to do is get the shapes in first, and then I'll change the saturation brightness, and then there we go, right? You can change it. That's the nice thing about digital painting. So when I say get things wrong, the caveat is you have to fix it, of course, but because it's digital painting, I can go really fast and get things wrong. Just get things in, make sure they're in the right layer, and then I'll fix them later. So as long as everything is in the right place, i.e. layer, you don't need to go crazy with layers. I mean, I usually, for a painting like this, I end up with maybe like 10. So something like that. So you don't have to go crazy. You don't want to lay for everything because then it gets kind of nuts. So I have 1 or 2 layers per big aspect. So if you look at this, if you look at the reference now when I'm painting this, we got the mountains. Well, obviously we got the sky. The sky is going to be 1. Then we got the mountains in the background. That's going to be 2. You got the yellow ground. That's going to be 3. And you got the trees, which is going to be 4. And then you got legs, going to be 5. Now, so once you got those 5 ones, I generally have maybe another one on top of each one. So that's why I end up with about 10. Like sometimes it'll be 12, 13, and towards the end of the painting, I'll just put a layer above everything and put detail there where I can't really be bothered to decide which layer it should be on. Layers are a tool, and they're not I don't want them to hinder me. I want them to help me. So if they start getting in my way, then I'll just stop using them and I'll just paint on whatever's there. Because I like to paint fast and free, and if I don't, it's not fun for me. So I like kind of scribbling. I like making a mess. When I use acrylic paints or something, sometimes I just make a mess, and I find it a lot more fun than trying to accurately paint something. Check out my Patreon if you like what I'm doing. I post some other stuff there, and a bit slower. But anyway, I slowed this down a little bit because I want to show you the sky. So the sky is just one color, and then I add 2 more colors in it. Very simple, very quickly. Using the color fill, you could use a brush, it doesn't really matter. Then go to Gaussian blur. Percent is kind of up to you, but the higher you go, the more it's going to be blended. And you get this super perfect sky with barely even trying. And I think lots of landscape painting, especially digital, is about finding the simple little techniques. You know, they're hard to find, obviously, but hopefully me telling you is going to help. Is that you don't want to go overboard. It's quite easy that, like, see those background trees over the yellow horizon there. It'd be quite easy to try and paint every little detail of those, but that's kind of not the point. So you have to know where to paint and what to leave. And if you're in doubt, try and leave everything. So try and not focus on anything. Try and focus on a mediocre bit of everything. And that's what I do, basically, is like, I don't want the mountains to look amazing. I don't want the sky to look amazing. I don't want the fields to look amazing. I want them all to represent roughly what I'm trying to do. Now, if I keep it consistent, it's all going to come together at the end. Now, if I overdo a certain part, it's going to look weird. And as lots of new people into painting, it doesn't actually have to be landscapes. It can be people too. You know, if you do amazing eyes and then the nose is weird and the mouth is weird, it doesn't work either. So you have to be consistent. And consistency is a massive, especially I think in landscape painting, this makes a big difference because you got to paint a bunch of areas. I think people focus on kind of like the background or the foreground a bit too much, and the middle ground gets lost. I used to do exactly the same, because I used to be able to do, and maybe I still do actually, I'm not saying like any of this perfect, but I used to concentrate on the mountains because I like the mountains. And then if I had something in the front, like some rocks or something, I like doing those too. And then I didn't really know what to do with the midground at all. And it's just like, I paint. So what I actually did, which I didn't realize, is I painted the mountains too good and the rocks too good. And then in between, it's like, what on earth do you do? So the point is, like, paint the foreground. So you can go more interest in the foreground, right? So you probably can go as nuts as you want if it's in like 10 feet of view. So I imagine I'm standing on this lake. Say there's something you can't see you're standing on. Maybe it's just like a bank on the other side. And I pretend I'm standing there. You're going to see up to like maybe the first horizontal tree line in any sort of detail. And then after that, you're not really going to see anything. So you can paint as much detail up to there and then not any further. Now, of course you can. And if you really want like photorealism, which isn't real whatsoever, is photorealism. If you were standing here, it wouldn't look like that. But that's fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with trying to copy photos. I've done it too. It's quite fun. What photos do, though, is they remove depth. And so basically they don't blur things, and the atmospheric... the mountains are not dulled enough, and the saturation isn't dulled enough. So our cameras pick up nonsense that doesn't really exist. So you have a photo and you think, you look at it after you've taken it, a couple hours later, and it's like, that looks nothing like what I was there. Yeah, because cameras have limitations. So what's quite fun about painting is we can get rid of those limitations and put back exactly what we saw, which is quite difficult because obviously we're not standing there anymore and all we've got to go by is the photo. But there's a bunch of simple rules take quite a long time to learn and put in practice. So as much as they say they're simple rules, they are fairly simple rules, but you got to kind of break your brain and put them into practice, which is not simple. And I'll repeat them over my videos, hopefully, and they'll sink in eventually, but it's going to take some time. But the basic rules of, you got to learn what the photos do badly and not fall into the trap. So what I try to do is, when I'm out walking around and I'm walking in places like this, not quite as cool as that, and I don't think I've seen a mountain like that in real life, to be honest, which would be nice, but yeah, maybe I have in Scotland. Maybe I have. I'm not doing it justice, but not quite like this. This would be an awesome scene. But anyway, what I'm talking about is the camera picks up too much detail. That's one. It'll pick up detail from a mile away. Your eyes can't do that. And we really want to paint what our eye see, not what the camera sees. Unless that's what you want to do, obviously, caveat. But I'd rather paint what my eyes see and not what the camera sees. So when I'm out walking and hiking in these places, well, maybe you don't hike, but you'll have to go by the photos, obviously. But it doesn't really matter if you hike. You're out and about. You don't see something half a mile away, like these mountains are. You can't really see much, so don't paint much, and they fall off a lot quicker. I probably haven't fallen there off enough, actually. Mine's probably a bit too sharp. I could have, dulled those mountains a little bit. I gotta be honest, I wasn't really in the mood to be painting this painting. Sometimes you get to the, your iPad or your drawing or whatever, and you do it, and it's like, yeah, this'll be cool. And then, 10, 20 minutes down the line, I'm like, I can't be asked. But if I feel like that, I still push through and try to finish. Like I said, this is 2 times, so it took me about 30 minutes, and I really, should have took longer. But it's not about how long something takes you, though. If you get the gist of it and you get out what you want, then it's still a worthwhile exercise. And you could call this sort of a speed painting. I wasn't very careful. I mean, if you've seen in my other videos, I don't actually like to be that careful anyway. So even if I spent another 30 minutes on it, I probably wouldn't have done a great deal more. But this only actually has a few elements anyway. So it's elements I paint quite a lot. So when you get that, I just repeat what I did before, and hopefully it works. And now I try and tweak something every time, or I'm not learning. So I'll just change little subtle things, like I'll do the clouds a bit different, or I'll try the lake a bit different, or I'll use the smudge tool if I didn't use it before. Now, I try and keep things simple. Oh, and by the way, I'm only using a technical pen in the generic brushes and the smudge tool. Now, when I use the smudge tool, I've got a soft airbrush on. So I want hard edges for my brush, but I want soft edges on the smudge. And that's all I use. I don't use any other brushes. I've experimented with brushes plenty of times. They don't do it for me. Maybe not yet. I changed my mind. Maybe they'll work for me one day, but they're not working for me now, and I don't need them. And I don't think anybody really needs them. You got to learn the fundamentals of painting landscapes or painting in general. Landscapes, just the only difference with landscape is depth. That's really the only difference with landscapes and atmosphere, where you don't get that if things are close up. So anyway, I think I'm about done. This one was pretty cool, actually. I quite liked this one in the end, even though I rushed it a little bit. Again, check me on Patreon and give me a sub and a like, and I'll be doing more of these, so catch me in the next one. Thanks.